someone is slowly opening their eyes while several people are talking to each other. This person feels their head spinning and really wants to know what is happening, until, upon realizing the number of people in front of him, he becomes frightened and questions who the people he is seeing are, also noticing that this is certainly not his home. Then, he feels something very strong in his head and thinks he is starting to remember. This is Xiaolin, a recent graduate who, before getting a real job, made a living by leveling up characters in games. And, with each victory in the games, he felt quite satisfied and also very tired. After leaving the computer, he would lie down on the bed and start using his phone, and this made his father very angry, wanting to know how he ended up having a useless son. And to prove that he was not as useless as they said, he left his house because he wanted to prove to everyone that he was not the person they insisted he was. He just had not yet found anything in his field. Until, on a certain day, he was not expecting what would happen, since it had not even been 2 days since he moved, and in the middle of the night, he received a strange letter out of nowhere, and upon opening it, he was enveloped by a strange power and was congratulated for being admitted as a freshman in preparation at Dawn Academy, where his identity verification as a freshman was completed and forced teleportation would begin. Back in the present, Xiaolin, while still feeling discomfort in his head, concludes that he was forcibly kidnapped to the bizarre place called Dawn Academy because of that strange letter. At that moment, a guy appears wanting to know if the MC has finally woken up and how bad someone's physique has to be to lie down for more than 3 hours, asking if he went into hibernation. Then, several other people start screaming in desperation, wanting to know where they are and if they have been kidnapped. The same guy who approached the MC does not like the commotion, so he quickly draws his sword and, releasing his power into it, delivers an attack that passes right next to the people and hits the wall in the back. Then he shouts, asking what all that noise is that everyone is making, and then orders everyone to shut up. While the MC and the others become apprehensive, the guy continues shouting, asking why there are always this kind of idiots among the freshmen and whether the admissions department just sleeps instead of working. However, he emphasizes that since someone woke up too late, their class's time has already been greatly wasted and that, because of that, it will have to be as brief as possible. That said, he explains that this is Class 7 of the first year at Dawn Academy and that he will be their instructor. Then he introduces himself and says his name is Qin Chuan and that they are the chosen ones and need to go through a lot of training there to constantly increase their strength, improve themselves, and finally earn the right to enter the new world. In addition, there, they will be able to obtain strength, wealth, power, and even eternal life. The people are surprised, wanting to know if the guy is crazy and what this talk about a new world is. Qin Chuan turns around and tells everyone to keep their badges and announces that the potential assessment will begin immediately. Xiaolin looks back and realizes that, besides him, there are at least about 200 people there, so he thinks it cannot be a normal kidnapping, but he questions what kind of bizarre place this is and whether he is still on Earth, since this new world the instructor mentioned sounds like the vocabulary used in those alien immigration plans. And while the first freshman enters the machine to take the assessment, the MC wonders if it is something like character stats in games. Then the assessment ends and the instructor says that the freshman had a total attribute of 24 points. Next, a very strong guy is evaluated with 32 points, and the instructor says that it is a reasonable amount. However, as soon as a woman is evaluated, Qin Chuan shouts saying that she was far too average, having only 1 or 2 stats that are any good, and also says that he will definitely complain to the director later to make the admissions department stop recruiting people from the trash. At that moment, it is the MC's turn to be evaluated, but the evaluation takes a little longer than the others, and he starts wondering why it has not finished yet, since he has in mind that other people's evaluations ended in 6 or 7 seconds, and his has already been going on for almost a minute. Qin Chuan smiles while waiting for the MC's evaluation to finish, until it finally ends. Xiaolin starts to leave the evaluation device, but the instructor asks him to wait, as he will check his data and, since it took a bit longer, he wants to know if perhaps some treasure appeared. However, he ends up quite surprised by what he sees, since the MC's stats are 2 in strength, 2 in agility, 2 in intelligence, and 13 in constitution. Therefore, Qin Chuan makes a disappointed face and comments that the boy only has 9 points in total attributes. Then he puts his hand on his face and shouts, saying that since he joined Dawn Academy, he has never seen such trash stats, and that it is the first time he has seen someone start with a single digit. Xiaolin does not like hearing that and thinks he does not care about it at all. The instructor then comments that he thought a student with innate talent had appeared, but in the end, he just wasted his expectations for nothing. That said, he emphasizes that the MC is nothing more than useless. Hearing himself called that, he immediately remembers the people who always called him that. Then, he gets angry and reflects that since he was a child, no matter where he went, he was always called useless. So he wonders if even in this bizarre place he cannot escape that title. Qin Chuan picks up an identification badge and comments that with the MC's stats, he thinks giving it to him would be a complete waste of time. And before the instructor could finish speaking, Xiaolin quickly grabs the identification badge from his hand. Then he makes it clear that whether he is useless or not will not be decided by a number, and that no matter what the instructor says, he will try anyway. Qin Chuan remarks that at least the boy has a tough mouth, but that it is fine, and he will wait to see him get slapped by reality. At that moment, a girl asks for permission to speak to the instructor and asks what that student with innate talent he mentioned earlier is. Qin Chuan says it is someone blessed by the heavens and a guarantee of survival in the new world. But as for them, he thinks it is better to first think about how to pass the admission test. Another girl approaches the instructor and comments that since he said that at the academy they could obtain unimaginable wealth and power, she would like to confirm and asks what price they need to pay for those things. Qin Chuan looks at her data and comments that her name is Gu Xiao Yue and that she is the person with the highest initial attribute in the group. Although it is a pity she does not have a special talent, but he can still answer her question. Then he says that in that school, credits and exchange points are the universal currency and can be exchanged for anything they want. She nods and says she understands. The MC observes her and wonders if she, a person who seems educated and refined, has the highest attributes among them, and that even the instructor spoke to her in such a polite manner, making it clear he has high expectations for her. Then Qin Chuan says that anyone who wants to check their status just needs to think about confirming attributes silently. Xiaolin takes his identification badge and thinks about checking attributes. As a result, a system window appears with his information. He also sees that his physical attack rating is F, as well as his magical attack rating. His natural life expectancy is 83 years, and since he is currently 23 years old, his remaining life expectancy is 60 years. However, with each elimination, 10 years of his life will be automatically reduced, and when his life reaches 0, he will be eliminated instantly. Xiaolin is very shocked to learn this. And not only him, but all the other people as well, who soon begin to shout, wanting to know if what they are seeing is some kind of bad joke and how they are supposed to know their life expectancy. However, Xiaolin is surprised by something, as he is receiving a system notification informing that an abnormal fluctuation has been detected and a hidden talent has been unlocked, and the analysis will begin. Then he becomes confused about what is happening, so he looks from side to side and realizes that the other people around him did not hear the same voice he heard, and concludes that he was the only one who heard it. But he ends up seeing that the name of the talent is unknown, as it has no correspondence in the database, as well as the level of the talent. After that, the system informs that the analysis of the talent's content is that the student's learning ability is immensely enhanced. The effect of the passive talent is that the learning efficiency of all skills is improved to 100%. As for the active talent effect, the MC gains 1 chance to copy, which allows him to copy any skill equivalent to an F rating, and the effect lasts 3 minutes. But talent skills cannot be copied. In addition, the active copying ability can only be activated once every 7 days. And when the talent levels up, the data of this effect will be improved. The system also emphasizes that since there are no precedents for the talent that the MC has acquired according to the rules, the first to possess a new talent will have the right to name it. Xiaolin starts thinking about it and questioning a good name until he has an idea and concludes that it will be top student. Thus, the system announces that the name of the talent will be top student, and the evaluation of the talent's level will begin. It does not take long for the system to inform that the talent has been classified as SS, which leaves the MC quite surprised upon learning this. But he quickly turns around and, seeing the instructor shouting at the other students, thinks that during the scanning moments earlier, not even Qin Chuan's permission was able to detect the existence of his talent. Then he becomes excited and thinks about his SS class talent and concludes that this may be his trump card to survive from now on. A few minutes later, one of the freshmen wants to know what this life expectancy means, as he saw in his system that he only has 9 years of life left. So he wants to know if, upon dying once, he will really lose 10 years and then be eliminated immediately. The instructor gives the freshman a smack on the head and shouts, calling him a pig-brained idiot. Then he answers yes, and explains that if he only has 9 years of life left, once he is eliminated, all his life will be reduced, and he will be eliminated right away. But he still thinks they all hit the jackpot. He then says that outside, life spends 1 year every year, and if they are in danger and die, that is it. But here life is a resource and currency, because with each completed mission, through point exchange and increased strength, they can gain life from all of that. That said, he emphasizes that what the Academy will give them is a stepping stone to change their fate, which includes power, knowledge, wealth, and life extension, as long as they have enough credits and exchange points, and that, theoretically, eternal life is not unattainable either. Xiao Yue wants to know if this rule only applies inside the Academy or if it works anywhere. Chuan comments that after they become Academy students, this rule comes into effect automatically, and as long as they are still on Earth, this rule will work. After that, he shouts that he does not want any more delays and that the admission test will begin immediately. Then, he snaps his fingers and tells everyone to stay still and not move. At that moment, they are informed that the countdown for teleportation has begun. The freshmen do exactly what the instructor said, just like the MC, and soon everyone is teleported. Chuan takes a deep breath and thinks he cannot believe there is not a single talented student in this batch of freshmen, and that it even seems he will not get a good score in the instructor evaluation that year until someone appears laughing and greeting Chuan. Then, while smoking his cigar, the instructor says that 2 students with talent came out of his class 3, one being an A and one a B. Chuan says that in his class there is a genius with more than 40 initial attribute points, but the other instructor asks, what is the point of having high attributes, since what matters is talent, and says he heard that the Eagle Country had a freshman with double S talent the previous year. Chuan slaps the other instructor's hand and then emphasizes that this was debunked a long time ago, and that he knows there is no record in the central database, which means double S talent does not even exist. After that, in the depths of the goblin lair, the freshmen are feeling a bad smell coming from the place. Lin covers his nose, opens his system window, and sees that the admission test has started, being a mandatory mission in which he needs to escape the forest in 1 hour and reach the safe area, in addition to his optional missions of eliminating 5 goblins and eliminating the Goblin King. The reward for completing the mandatory mission is 10 credits and 100 exchange points. The reward for completing optional mission 1 is 10 credits and 200 exchange points. And finally, the reward for completing optional mission 2 is an additional 20 credits and 500 exchange points. At that moment, all the freshmen receive an exclusive package, which contains a random weapon. Then, the system informs that there will be no elimination penalty in the admission test, which leaves everyone excited and shouting that it is a good thing their lives will not be reduced. After that, the MC clicks to accept the package he received and obtains the novice staff, with an F-rated magical attack evaluation, but which has an included skill, being the energy ball, which consumes a bit of the caster's mental power. Lin receives a notice that he has unlocked the basic magic wand proficiency skill, and the current level of the skill is 1. He keeps observing the staff and thinking that, apparently, items also have skills and experience points, being very similar to the games he used to play. With that in mind, he soon decides to test the energy ball skill from his staff and quickly fires it at a rock. The system notifies that the MC gained 2 experience points in basic magic wand proficiency, he gets excited upon learning that using the weapon increases experience points. Then he concludes that since he has the passive bonus from the outstanding student talent, it means the evolution speed of his skills will be twice that of others. However, out of nowhere, he feels a strong discomfort in his head, and upon seeing the system informing that his magical power is insufficient at the moment and that it is not possible to cast the energy ball, Lin reflects that his attributes are very low, since his mana bar is still very short. At that moment, one of the freshmen shouts, bragging that he unlocked basic heavy sword proficiency and that with each strike he will gain 1 experience point. The MC, hearing this, thinks that it is indeed possible to unlock skills using the corresponding weapon, and that, if it were just about striking aimlessly to increase experience points, it would be very easy to stay there farming levels quickly and then go out to complete the mission. But upon observing the other freshmen testing their new weapons, he thinks that swinging a weapon without purpose is useless, because it is necessary to meet a certain standard to gain experience. And, for ordinary people, this wear and tear is enormous. In addition, he knows that the mission time limit is meant to eliminate the possibility of them resting and farming experience in the same place. Therefore, he thinks that the ideal would be to switch to a physical weapon to maximize the advantage of leveling up. At that moment, Zhao Yue appears asking the MC for permission, and then asks if, by any chance, he wants to switch weapons. Then she says that although she does not play video games, she also knows that things like magic certainly have some kind of cost, whether mental power or mana points, and this probably has to do with their medical exam intelligence. Then she points to the MC's staff and comments that she thinks his weapon would be more suitable for her, besides that he does not seem very suited to the staff. Lin comments that he remembers the name, but wants to confirm if it is Gu Xiao Yue. She answers yes, but wants to know if he is willing to switch weapons. Lin hands over the staff and points out that casting spells with it requires a certain precision and therefore warns her to pay attention to her aim when using it. After they exchange weapons, the MC receives the novice dagger, and the basic dagger proficiency skill is unlocked. He quickly wields it and thinks it is much easier to use. Then he has an idea and, while observing Xiao Yue looking at the staff, considers that to pass the admission test smoothly, it would be better to find a team partner. With that in mind, he turns around and calls her. However, the freshman with the heavy sword steps in front and asks first if Xiao Yue wants to team up. Then the big guy says that he heard her attributes are the highest in their class, but points out that his are not low either, and that she should form a partnership because of that. And, pointing at the MC, he comments that compared to the weakling, he, Wang Dalin, inspires much more confidence. Lin does not like hearing this, and thinks it is nothing special to have high attributes. Zhao Yue becomes thoughtful, but soon turns and tells the big guy that she has no interest in forming a partnership with him. The freshmen around start laughing and saying that Wang Dalin is a reject, which makes him nervous, and think that he cannot accept this at all. Then, he looks at the MC with a very nasty expression, walks up to him, slaps his shoulder, and shouts asking what the idiot is looking at. Then, Wang Dalin says that he gets irritated just by looking at someone useless like the MC and that it is not enough for him to be dead weight. He still pretends to know things. Lin emphasizes that passing the test or not depends on each person's own ability, and therefore thinks that instead of picking a fight there, it is better for the big guy to save his energy to deal with the mission. Wang Dalin grabs the MC by the shirt and asks how he dares to question him, saying he will immediately show what ability is. Lin laughs and comments that apparently he thinks the big guy will not have that chance. He says this because he sees an enraged goblin rushing straight at the big guy and striking Dalin in the face with its claws. The big guy suffers some cuts and cries out in pain, but the goblin charges at him again. However, this time Dalin counterattacks and eliminates the creature. Then, while looking at the defeated goblin on the ground, he comments that he almost ended up in trouble. Next, he turns around pointing at the MC and asks if he is trying to laugh, thinking that a mere goblin could eliminate him. But Dalin soon hears a noise, looks back, and sees several eyes in the forest, when suddenly many goblins appear. The freshmen scream in fear and try to defend themselves from the creature's attacks, but some are defeated. It does not take long for the place to fall into complete chaos. Lin blocks an attack and thinks that what he is feeling is indeed very real. At that moment, another freshman girl is saved by an attack coming from the left. Xiao Yue has just tested her staff's skill. The MC eliminates the goblin he is fighting and, upon looking around, thinks that aside from the setting being virtual data, all the other sensations are real. And because of that, he realizes he was very naive after all, since what he is witnessing is far from playing a video game, and that ordinary people without experience, even with weapons, are just sheep heading to slaughter. Then, one freshman points forward and shouts for everyone to look, saying that it seems the goblins do not attack those inside the cave, and because of that, thinks it is better for everyone to run there. Lin watches the freshman run away in fear and thinks that, apparently, inside the cave really is still safe. However, he knows that the remaining protection time in the cave will end soon. Therefore, he firmly grips his sword and reflects that he needs to stay calm and properly analyze the situation, because in any case, he cannot just sit and wait to be eliminated. So, he decides to test a move with his weapon and gains 2 experience points in his basic dagger proficiency. With that, he looks at his weapon and concludes that it is exactly as he suspected. The posture has to be correct, and he must use full strength to gain experience. And since his attributes are low, he knows each strike must count and that, before starting to fight, he has to get as used to the weapon as possible to increase experience. After some time, the freshmen notice that the cave's protection will end soon and start to panic. One of them comments that the admission test mission is impossible to complete, while another emphasizes that long-range weapons do not hit anything, not to mention that the goblins are quite fast. Meanwhile, Xiao Yue is sitting, watching the MC train with his weapon, who is quite exhausted. Then Xiao Yue goes up to him and comments that what he is doing does not make sense, because according to calculations, to level up the equipment skill they are using to level 2, at normal efficiency, takes about 1 hour, and the mission time does not allow them to find a workaround. Lin thinks she is very smart, and, while observing her, concludes that according to his own calculations, it really does take about 1 hour to reach level 2. However, he knows that since he has the bonus from his outstanding student talent, things are different, because according to the progress shown in his system, he is already almost at level 2. Therefore, he thanks Xiao Yue for the warning, but says he is just getting the hang of it, and asks if she already has any results from her observation of the goblins outside the cave. She is surprised and asks if he really knew that she was observing. Lin replies that yes, and that it is just like playing video games, since before pulling a monster's aggro, you always have to read the guide first. Xiao Yue comments that she does not play video games, and the MC responds that he could tell, but gives a slight cough to change the subject, and emphasizes that, from what he observed, the attack and defense of the goblins that appeared are quite weak, being roughly at level F. Their defense is very low, and their vital points are the head and chest. So he thinks that if they overcome their fear, it will not be difficult in a one-on-one confrontation. That said, he emphasizes that, in fact, the mission is not difficult, but since everyone is too scared, it makes things complicated. And upon observing a freshman girl trembling with fear, he makes it clear that if they lose the courage to fight, they will lose all chances of winning. Xiao Yue comments that the cave's protection only has 2 minutes left, and that it is time for them to leave. The MC agrees and emphasizes that they cannot just think about running away. However, Dalin steps in front of them, wanting to know where they think they are going. Then the big guy once again calls Xiao Yue to form a group with him, and points out that with both of their attributes, they will be able to eliminate anything, but makes it clear that bringing the MC along would only slow them down. She comments that reaching the safe area required by the mission is not difficult, but that the difficulty and the greater reward lie with the Goblin King. Dalin shouts, saying that the Goblin King is just an optional mission, not to mention that so far this so-called Goblin King has not even shown up, and besides, she does not even know if she will manage the basics, which is surviving, and she is already thinking about completing the hidden mission. Lin joins the conversation and comments that if such a mission exists, it is proof that it is not impossible to complete it, and if the Goblin King has not appeared so far, that means there is a triggering mechanism, which could be time number of people remaining, or even the number of goblins eliminated. Xiao Yue emphasizes that time can be ruled out, because she thinks the school would not leave only a few minutes for them to fight the boss, and that the number of remaining students can also be ruled out, leaving only the option of the number of creatures defeated. The MC says he would take a guess that by clearing a certain percentage of goblins, the boss will appear. At that moment, the freshman girl, who had been trembling with fear, asks them to wait and wonders if just completing the mandatory mission would not be enough, and why they have to try to eliminate the boss, since just the goblins outside the cave are already very frightening, and only God knows how strong the Goblin King might be. Lin replies that it is because there is no penalty if they lose in the test they are taking, but if they win, the profit will be absurd, and that if everyone keeps in mind that they only need to run away, it will be a huge waste. Then the MC asks if everyone there really thinks that after entering the school, it will always be this easy to earn credits with zero risk, and, because of that, since they have the chance to get more credits and exchange points, he wants to know why not go all out and try. The freshmen begin to gather courage upon hearing this, and comment that since they will not be penalized if they are eliminated, it is indeed worth trying. However, Dallin wants to know if they are really going to listen to a useless failure like the MC, because in his mind, the one who will carry the team is his 32 points in initial attributes. Xiao Yue makes it clear that 32 points is only slightly better than an ordinary person. The big guy does not like hearing this, and asks how high her attributes could be. She takes a deep breath, points the staff at him, and replies that her initial attributes are 46 points, then asks if now he can shut his damn mouth. Dallin looks at the staff in front of him and decides not to say anything. Meanwhile, the MC is surprised to learn the number of Xiao Yu's attribute points, because he knows that this amount is 5 times greater than his. Xiao Yui goes to the middle of the freshmen and makes it clear that anyone who wants to pass the test, anyone who wants to earn the extra reward, should follow her orders, because only by uniting will they be able to complete each other's missions as much as possible. That said, she calls Dallin and comments that since his attributes are high, he will be responsible for drawing the goblins' attention on the front line. He does not like the idea of having to follow orders, but ends up giving in and says he understands. Then, Xiao Yue emphasizes that those with long-range weapons will provide support from the rear. After that, they are to form groups of 3 in a simple formation and cover each other to complete the elimination mission and try to take down as many goblins as possible. That said, she turns to comment on what the MC will do, but he interrupts her and says he will be responsible for moving around and interfering, and on top of that, he will deliver the final blow to goblins that flee with low health, since he has in mind that, as his attributes are quite low, to complete the elimination mission, he needs to avoid direct combat as much as possible. With that, everyone heads outside the cave. Dallin wastes no time and charges forward, eliminating the goblins on the front line. The freshmen with bows stay behind, and as soon as the goblins try to approach, they fire arrows to stop their advance or even eliminate the creatures. However, one of the goblins manages to advance before being hit and rushes straight at a freshman girl, but the MC quickly appears and eliminates his first creature. The freshman girl breathes in relief and thanks him. Lin thinks he needs to do exactly what he just did, not engage head-on, conserve energy, and only look for the chance to deliver the final blow. And with that in mind, he continues doing exactly as he planned, always appearing at the last moment and securing one elimination after another. One of the freshmen looks at the MC and comments that he is the guy who only has a single digit in initial attributes. But even so, it feels like he only shows up when the monster is most vulnerable. Meanwhile, Dallin thinks the MC is just being lucky, since he is only picking up the leftovers. Xiao Yue thinks it is not luck, because she believes the MC somehow always manages to avoid the goblins' line of sight in advance, and even predict their movements. And he, in turn, receives 6 experience points in basic dagger proficiency and levels it up. Then he thinks that it is a good thing he once got an immersive virtual reality game and played non-stop for 2 months, because if it were not for that, he would not be able to deliver the final blow there with such precision. Then he is surprised by a system notification, as he is informed that, according to the database verification, he is the first student of that freshman batch to reach level 2 in a skill and that according to the reward policy for freshmen at the Dawn School, a skill compatible with his current ability will be granted for free. The skill in question is Heavy Strike, which has the requirement for learning of strength equal to or greater than 1. The weapon requirement is any physical melee weapon. The skill description is that after a brief buildup of strength, once the MC delivers a more powerful strike, the power will depend on his current strength value. But if he uses this skill repeatedly, it will accelerate energy consumption. And the ideal use of the skill is with an interval of at least 1 minute between uses. Lin gets excited because, in addition to leveling up, he also gained a new skill, and he knows that there is only one goblin left to complete optional mission 1. At that moment, a goblin falls to the ground after being hit by an attack, and the MC does not hesitate and quickly eliminates the creature, completing optional mission 1. He breathes in relief after achieving that. With that, the goblins begin to disappear, and Dallin shouts, wanting to know what is happening. All the freshmen hear a voice announcing that the number of goblins has been reduced by 1/3 and the hidden condition has been fulfilled. With that, the Goblin King will appear soon, and it does not take long before it emerges in front of everyone. The boss pulls air into his mouth and then lets out a loud, piercing roar. The freshmen cover their ears and scream, saying it feels like their eardrums are about to burst. Lin and Xiao Yue stay on alert as they are facing the Goblin King, the dungeon boss of the entrance test. The MC observes the boss and concludes that this is why the other goblins disappeared. At that moment, the freshmen begin to panic and comment that the Goblin King's HP bar is larger than their own health, so they wonder how they will defeat something so terrifying. Next, some freshmen drop their weapons on the ground and shout that they are going to run away. The MC shouts for them to wait and not run in all directions. That said, he thinks that these goblins have a characteristic where their field of vision is small, but in contrast, their sense of smell and hearing are extremely sharp. As soon as the Goblin King notices the freshman's movement, he quickly turns, looking in the direction of one of them. Dallin gets nervous and shouts, asking why everyone is afraid, since they outnumber it and just need to charge to eliminate the creature. With that, he leaps and rushes at the Goblin King, who simply moves his arm and hits Dallin directly, slamming him hard onto the ground. Due to the strong impact, Dallin takes heavy damage. Because of this, he is eliminated and removed from the entrance test. Seeing this, the freshmen become even more desperate and run uncontrollably across the battlefield. This makes it easy for the boss, who simply steps on them with his enormous foot. Then, with his powerful club, he strikes 2 freshmen at once. Due to the strong impact on the ground, one female freshman is thrown backward and ends up completely defenseless in front of the Goblin King. However, he suddenly receives a magical attack to his arm, and while the giant tries to understand where the attack came from, the female freshman takes advantage of the distraction and runs away. Xiao Yue is disappointed and comments that unfortunately she missed her shot, since hitting the limbs drastically reduces damage, and therefore she knows she needs to hit a vital point to deal more damage. With that, she reflects that, according to her original plan, the others would distract the Goblin King while she and the rest of the ranged attackers would stay behind dealing continuous damage. And as long as everyone worked together before exhausting their mental power, they could easily defeat the boss. But as she looks around, she concludes that it is already over, as the formation has completely fallen apart. Xiao Yue stands still in front of the Goblin King, who on the other hand, wastes no time and prepares his attack. Xiao Yu hears the MC calling her an idiot and telling her to run. Then he appears, delivering a slash to the boss's body, which enrages it and makes it try to hit the MC with its enormous club, but he manages to dodge, and as he retreats, he thinks that from what he observed moments earlier, the Goblin King's attack mechanic is to prioritize the closest target. With that in mind, he shouts to the freshmen who are hiding that the other goblins are already gone, and now they only need to face the Goblin King, so they should not panic or draw the creature's attention, but instead keep their distance and deal damage from afar. With this, he believes that if everything goes right, they will create a brief opportunity. The female freshman, still very scared, picks up her bow and says she will try. Then the MC shouts, calling Xiao Yue, and asks her to find a chance to reduce the boss's HP, since her attack power is high. With that, the female freshman with the bow and Xiao Yue prepare themselves, then launch their attacks at the Goblin King, and its HP is reduced to less than half. He drops his enormous club to the ground, and the female freshman with the bow shouts that it seems the attacks worked. Lin thinks this is very good, but asks them to keep attacking. However, the Goblin King becomes enraged and lets out another piercing roar, but this time, he raises his fists high and then slams the ground with full force. And due to the impact, the ground begins to crack, and several stones are launched in different directions. The MC shouts for everyone to be careful, but the female freshman with the bow is hit directly by one of the thrown stones and is eliminated on the spot. The Goblin King stands up, and the MC and Xiao Yue prepare for the confrontation, but the female freshman turns and asks the MC if they still have a chance to win, since only the two of them are left. Lin asks how her mana bar is, and how many energy balls she can still cast. Xiao Yu grips her staff firmly and replies that unfortunately, at most only 2 more energy balls. The MC comments that this is already enough, since he knows that if they hit the creature's head, the damage will be greater. Therefore, she will only need to hit the Goblin King's head once. Xiao Yue says that she might not be able to, because the creature's movements are very fast and her accuracy is still not sufficient. Lin makes it clear that if the Goblin King's movements are fast, he will simply find a way to force it to stop. With that, he activates his top student talent. Then, he manages to see that the Goblin King has the Shockwave ability, which deals impact damage to targets within a 5-meter radius around it, and can create a 3-second stun effect. Thus, the MC starts running while thinking that in the past, his talent had no use and he was always called useless. But now, as he copies the Goblin King's Shockwave ability, he thinks that his battlefield has finally arrived. Then he charges straight at the creature, which in turn prepares its Shockwave ability. Lin, upon seeing the Goblin King preparing to unleash the attack, reflects that the Shockwave is activated by slamming both hands on the ground, but the one he just copied is activated by the impact of the blade. So he has in mind that, with the height difference, the preparation time of his ability is certainly shorter than the boss's. Therefore, the MC activates the copied Shockwave and counterattacks the Goblin King's ability. Both abilities collide and create a very strong impact wave. The Goblin King is thrown backward, just like the MC. However, as he takes a deep breath, he concludes that his reasoning is correct. But upon seeing the boss coming at him again, he knows that his Shockwave cannot be used continuously, since it has a cooldown of 30 seconds. At that moment, an explosion occurs, and the Goblin King screams in pain as its hand was hit by an attack. Xiao Yu calls the MC and says that she will not last much longer, and that she only has 1 shot left. But she questions whether the MC really interrupted the Goblin King's ability, since she knows his stats are quite weak. But the Goblin King does not stand still and grabs a huge rock. Lin becomes worried upon seeing that he is very close to the boss, because he thinks that from that distance he will not be able to completely dodge the blow, and moreover, the cooldown of the Shockwave ability is still ongoing. However, he becomes excited as he has an idea, and as soon as the Goblin King attacks, he decides not to dodge and tries to block it with one of his arms. Xiao Yue becomes worried when she sees the MC being hit and shouts asking if he is okay. After the dust settles, Lin responds to Xiao Yue that he is fine, but that he ended up losing one of his arms. While the cooldown of the copied Shockwave ability is at 7 seconds, the Goblin King prepares to unleash its ability. The MC slides under the creature's legs and thinks that there, where he is, the boss's center of gravity is reduced. And with only 3 seconds left for the Shockwave cooldown to finish, Lin raises his sword high, and as soon as the cooldown ends, he drives the sword into the ground with full force and releases the power of the Shockwave. Since the Goblin King was very close, it is hit directly by the ability. Thus, the MC turns and shouts for Xiao Yue to seize the chance. She does not hesitate and launches her energy ball ability at the Goblin King's head. With that, the creature's remaining HP is drained. Then, as the Goblin King is removed from the dungeon, the system announces that the creature has been eliminated and the optional mission number 2 has been successfully completed. However, the MC drops his sword to the ground and begins to pass out due to exhaustion. And while lying on the ground, he thinks that unfortunately, he will not be able to complete the safe area mission. and before completely losing consciousness, he sees Xiao Yue running toward him, asking if he is okay. At that same moment, elsewhere, a meeting is taking place with the instructors and school directors. The director, while smoking his cigar, states that everyone there has already seen the test scores of the freshmen from each of their classes. So, as the director of the admissions department, he will give a summary in which, in the recent selection, there were 1,360 students divided into 12 classes, and the overall result of the entrance test was as follows. At level F, there were 560 students. At level D, 450 students. At level C, 200 students. At level B, 83 students. And at level A, 52 students. And the total number of students who achieved an S rating was 15 students. Upon hearing this, some instructors talk among themselves, but one of the instructors comments that for someone to qualify at level S, they must complete all 3 missions and still survive. Another instructor asks whether the freshmen of that year are really that strong, and if, by any chance, there were many students with talents. Then another instructor says that in his class, there were 2 students with talents, and the instructor next to him says that they also had 2, but both were level B. The director emphasizes that, after verification, among that year's freshmen, the school will have a total of 13 students with talents, and that, because of this, it is the class with the best quality of freshmen in the last 10 years. So, he believes that everyone did a good job. Chuan, discouraged with the meeting, while tapping the table with his finger, asks if his class was the only one that did not have any student with talent. The director hears this and points out that Class 7 may not have had any students with talent, but it broke 2 records in the school's history. With that, he says that first, 2 talentless students from the same class obtained an S rating at the same time, and second, they broke the record for the highest intelligence attribute for freshmen since the founding of Dawn Academy, and the record for the lowest overall attribute. Chuan cannot believe what he is hearing, but the director continues, saying that the most incredible thing is that these 2 completely opposite records came exactly from those 2 students in Chuan's class, who achieved the S rating in the test. After that, the system announces that the entrance test has ended and the teleportation preparation will begin. Thus, all the freshmen who went to the entrance test are brought back, and some are very happy to see that the injuries they had inside the dungeon have simply disappeared. Lin wastes no time and quickly opens his mission screen and sees that he completed everything and received an overall S rating, obtaining 40 credits and 800 exchange points as a reward. He becomes intrigued, wondering how he managed to complete the mission of reaching the safe area, since he clearly remembers that he had passed out. But when he looks to the side and sees Xiao Yue returning from the teleport, he wonders if it was she who helped him reach the safe area. At that moment, the female freshman archer who had been terrified inside the dungeon appears calling out to the MC. Then she thanks the MC and makes it clear that without him, she certainly would not have achieved an A-level evaluation. With that, she becomes a bit embarrassed and comments that she is useless in the end, since she ended up being eliminated by the boss's area damage at the end. But she wants to know how he and Xiao Yue managed to eliminate the Goblin King afterward. Lin takes a deep breath and says that they managed to eliminate the boss. The female freshman laughs and says she knew they would succeed. Then Dalin appears calling out to the MC and then comments that it was just blind luck, because he thinks that if he had not taken advantage of Xiao Yue with his attributes, he would have already been eliminated 800 times. At that moment, Xiao Yue quickly approaches the MC with a serious expression and says that regarding the battle they had inside the dungeon, she really wants to talk to him about it in private. Thus, both go to another place, and the MC comments on the safe zone mission and thanks Xiao Yue, who emphasizes that it was just a mutual benefit to maximize the rewards. That said, she points out that if he hadn't interrupted the Goblin King's skill and created an opportunity, she also wouldn't have been able to land the final blow. Lin thinks that, indeed, the girl in front of him calculates things very well. However, Xiao Yu points out that with the MC's attributes, it would theoretically be impossible to interrupt the boss's skill, so she believes he has his secrets and does not intend to dig into it, and that if anyone asks, she will keep his secret. Lin takes a deep breath and thanks her once again. Xiao Yue takes the identification card and says She discovered that the AI system embedded in the badge has a communication function, so she suggests they add each other as friends to make contact easier later. That said, she explains to the MC that by thinking of AI, he will be able to open the basic panel. Thus, both take their respective identification badges and think of AI together. Xiao Yue asks for the MC's registration number, and he replies that it is 201235. It doesn't take long before Xiao Yue sends the friend request. Lin clicks accept, and the system informs that Xiao Yue has been successfully added to the friends list. Suddenly, Instructor Chuan appears shouting, telling everyone who got an F grade on the entrance test to get out of there and gather at the gate immediately. That said, he informs that the rest of the freshmen should not stand still, as they need to open the map navigation in the AI and all head to the central field. Then Chuan looks to the side and sees the MC and Xiao Yue alone in the corner, and then asks Xiao Yue to come a little closer. Lin, upon opening the map, sees that the central field is located in the public classroom area, and that afterward, they have to cross the central courtyard. However, he is intrigued by something and wonders if the instructor is specifically looking for Xiao Yue because of his S-level evaluation, or if he noticed something else. After that, already at the central field, the MC is surprised to see more and more people appearing, but wonders if the disappearance of so many people at the same time won't cause any commotion. Then he sees Xiao Yue and asks if everything is okay. She replies that she didn't say anything she shouldn't have. At that moment, in the middle of the crowd, someone starts shouting for people to move aside, while a guy pushes through the crowd and another shouts for the freshmen to stay in class formation. And as soon as the bowl-cut guy approaches a device, he greets all the students there and informs them that he is the president of the Academy's student council and that the director will arrive a little later for some reasons. But before that, he would like to represent the Academy and welcome everyone. Suddenly, the MC is startled by a loud roar, just like the others, who look up and see a huge dragon approaching. Lin, very impressed, wonders if he is really seeing a real dragon. The enormous creature lets out another fierce roar, making the MC conclude that it is indeed a real dragon, authentic without a doubt, as his body freezes and he cannot move. Xiao Yue, meanwhile, trembling all over, reflects that it is a fear that comes from physiological instinct and that she can barely breathe in front of such a creature. As soon as the dragon lands on the ground, the old man apologizes to everyone for his delay and explains that he had to deal with some things along the way. This is the director of Dawn Academy. The student council president comments to the director that his entrance ceremony was a bit too grand. The old man gets angry and shouts, asking if the boy really thinks he wanted to be riding a giant flying lizard just to show off. That said, he looks at the dragon and says he had just rushed back from a certain place, and since time was short, he had no choice but to ride the dragon and get there quickly, but emphasizes that he did not imagine the dragon would be so agitated and would even dare to scare his students. He makes it clear to the creature that if it does what it did once more, he will skin it and make a sofa. Meanwhile, the MC is very surprised to see the director, as he has in mind that he is the only person who has permission to see his outstanding freshman talent. After that, the director tells everyone that he saw the results of that year's entrance exams and that their talents are very good. He says this, but soon looks to the side, and the MC is surprised to see that the director is looking directly at him. At that moment, the old man strikes his staff on the ground and activates his amplification spell. Then he says that, as usual, he should introduce himself first, but he thinks that what they most want to know right now is not his name, since he knows that many of them were invited to go there under strange or even unpleasant circumstances. So he wants to know if they are quite irritated, because if they are, they should blame the guy that he's pointing at, since it was all the work of his admissions department, which deliberately chooses terrible times to deliver acceptance letters, and that, because of this, when he has time, he will create a new rule, since from that moment on, admissions must be done during the day, as disturbing people at night is very annoying. The freshmen, upon hearing this, begin to laugh and agree with the academy director, who soon after comments that that is enough joking around. Then he points out that he will answer the two biggest questions on their minds, which he believes are who they are and what they will do. Thus, The director asks everyone to listen carefully and says that they, from Dawn Academy, are colonizers. That said, he explains that the world they are in is called Planet Norma, also known as the New World, and that the sole purpose of Dawn Academy is to train the best vanguard of colonizers, and that Norma is the new world they will go to and fight for, and it is also the territory they will conquer in the future. The director also makes it clear to everyone that the life that followed a script ended the moment they opened the acceptance letter, and that from that day onward, among them may arise a general who will lead legions and expand territories, but that a great archmage may also emerge who will explore the truth and master the laws, or even someone may become the leader who will dictate the rules in the new land. That said, he reinforces that strength, knowledge, power, and even immortality, all the treasures of the new world will open their doors to them. However, he comments that, to finish, he needs to announce a new rule, since according to the old rules, freshmen are strictly forbidden from setting foot in the new world, but that from their class onward, the top 3 in the overall exam of the first semester will gain the right to enter the new world in advance. As soon as the director announces this, the student council president calls out to him and says that such a matter concerns the safety of the freshmen and that, because of this, he thinks he should reconsider what he said. The old man turns with a serious look, which leaves the student council president frightened and thinking he spoke too much, but the director says that is enough and that he does not want to discuss it anymore, then declares the meeting closed. The MC thinks that the student council president's reaction was a bit exaggerated, so he wonders what the problem with this new rule imposed by the academy director could be. But even so, he knows that his current priority is to make the most of the academy's resources to strengthen himself. Then the MC hears someone asking him to wait a moment, and, upon turning around, realizes it is instructor Chuan, so he wants to know if something happened. The instructor takes a deep breath and informs that, by rule, whoever performs best in the entrance exam becomes the class representative, but that, for some reason he does not know, Xiao Yue refused to be the class representative. Lin wants to know what that has to do with him. Chuan explains that, due to Xiao Yue's refusal, the position fell to the MC, but he already warns him that being a class representative grants extra credits, resource quotas, and some privileges, and that these things are a lifeline for a weakling like the MC, and that this position will also have a new election after the 3-month overall exam, and then, even if the MC wants it, he will not be able to get it. At that moment, Lin receives a system notification informing him that he has been appointed by instructor Qin Chuan as the interim representative of Class 7 of the first year. Then the instructor leaves, saying he has already said everything and that the AI will send the freshman manual to him, emphasizing that the MC needs to read it. Lin begins to wonder what privileges those are that the instructor mentioned. After that, later in the student dormitory, the person in charge of the place, a bit off-key, informs the MC that it locks at 7 in the evening and opens at 6 in the morning, and that if he does not sleep in the dormitory, he loses credits. Then she is surprised by something, and, after seeing that the freshman in front of her is the class representative of that year, immediately changes her expression and comments that it is impressive, but the MC says that he is only an interim representative and was forced to accept. The girl laughs and asks him not to be modest, as she thinks that anyone who becomes a class representative is not just anyone, and that because of that, she will take him to get his things and choose a room. Then she throws clothes to the MC and says that it is his uniform and that the colors change each year, and in the second year it will be blue, but since they are in the first year, it will be green. After that, she takes the MC and shows his room, which is a single room exclusive to the interim representative, since regular freshmen stay in double rooms. That said, she hands over the access control and informs that purchases and attendance in classes are all done with the identity badge, and because of that, she suggests that he should not lose it. As soon as she finishes explaining everything, she introduces herself and says her name is Zhang Ting, and that if the MC has any questions about studies or life there, he just needs to add her as a friend and ask at any time. Lin laughs and thanks her for her generosity. Before leaving, Zhang Ting asks the MC not to forget to choose his subjects well. Lin thinks that she became visibly friendlier when she saw that he is the class representative, so he believes that this must be related to the privileges that Chuan mentioned earlier. And by observing his surroundings, he concludes that it is not difficult to see that the academy there has a severe class division, where everything depends on strength. But for now, he will first solve the problem of choosing subjects. Thus, he closes his eyes and thinks about opening the course grid. The system shows the grid for basic attributes, which are basic swordsmanship, saber technique, fist technique, archery, and meditation. For the secondary attributes grid, they are body technique, perception, balance, focus, tenacity, movement technique, blocking, and evasion. The mandatory subjects are general history of the world of Norma, universal language of Norma, and the geography of Norma. Lin is quite surprised and thinks that it is a lot, but he reflects that there is no way to avoid the mandatory subjects, and that, in addition, he needs to choose one basic combat subject and 3 secondary attribute subjects. But he knows he needs to stay calm, and that although there are many subjects, he still has his outstanding freshman talent. Then he keeps in mind that his attributes are a fatal weakness, and that, because of that, he needs to improve them in all aspects in the shortest time possible. But on the other hand, the doubled passive learning efficiency that the outstanding freshman talent brings is his greatest advantage, and he cannot waste it in any way. So he decides to choose basic swordsmanship for combat, which is easy to learn and very versatile, then basic body technique to increase survival, and basic meditation to improve mental power and focus. And after selecting his subjects, he clicks to choose them and concludes that where he is, strength is everything. On the next day, at the basic swordsmanship training field, the MC is training a lot and gaining experience in his basic swordsmanship, but he realizes that, just like the dagger, the point of strength of a cut with a longsword is in the waist and not in the wrist. But since the passive of the outstanding freshman talent is active, the learning efficiency increases by 100%. Thus, he continues training and thinks that if he masters the key point, his movements can become even faster. And, a few minutes later, the system informs the MC that his basic swordsmanship level has increased, and that his current level is now level 3, and the strength attribute increased from 2 to 3. Lin thinks that it took half an hour from level 1 to 2, and from level 2 to 3, it took 1 hour, being twice as fast as others, and that the increase in the skill level boosted the growth of the basic attribute, so he knows his reasoning was correct. Then he falls to the ground breathing heavily and thinks that he cannot train anymore, and that it even feels like his arm is going to fall off. At that moment, someone strikes the sword on the ground and comments that the foundation of that year's freshman is worse than expected, and that, judging by the tiny level he is seeing, he wonders how they dare choose his class. This is Chung Na, a third-year student and substitute teacher of basic swordsmanship, who soon asks all the freshmen to listen carefully and warns that if their proficiency in the basic swordsmanship skill does not reach level 3 in that class, no one will be dismissed. One of the freshmen starts crying upon hearing this and comments that if he had known, he would not have chosen the swordsmanship class. Another freshman comments that to raise basic swordsmanship from level 1 to 2, she will need to swing the sword non-stop for about 3 or 4 hours. Then the MC goes to the substitute teacher and calls her. He then says that his skill has already reached the level 3 she required, and that, according to the subject selection system schedule, his next basic meditation class will start soon, so he wants to know if he can leave early to go to class. Chung Na observes the MC and then comments that on the first day of class, in the first subject, in less than 2 hours since the class started, he is saying that he trained basic swordsmanship to level 3. The MC replies that he is not joking. Chung Na asks if he is Xiaolin, the lucky one with single-digit attributes who got an S grade on the test by being carried by his teammates, then makes it clear that if he wants to skip class, he should at least come up with a better excuse. Then she questions whether he really thinks this is her first day teaching novices. Lin comments that the data panel can prove it, since if she does not believe him, she can just check. She laughs, and, while releasing her power across the training field, the system notifies that the substitute teacher has requested the activation of the advanced teaching privilege, and that, because of this, the All Lines training simulation field will soon be open. The MC becomes confused by what he is seeing. Meanwhile, The substitute teacher equips her battle suit and makes it clear to the MC that instead of looking at his boring data, it is better to go straight to real combat. It does not take long for the scenario to change completely and for the system to welcome them to the all-lines combat simulation field. While the MC tries to understand what is happening around him, Chung-na explains that this is the ultimate training space built by the Academy by extracting some of the fundamental laws of the world of Norma at an astronomical cost of resources. That said, she suddenly appears beside the MC and informs him that he will not truly be eliminated there, but asks him to remember that all senses will be 100% real. Then the substitute teacher explains that opening the simulation field consumes a huge amount of exchange points and that she invested heavily in it. And while several armed skeletons charge at the MC, she calls him a brat and comments that since he claims his basic swordsmanship is already at level 3, she wants him to prove it with real combat. After that, she sits down and says that the strength of the skeletons is roughly the same as those goblins from the novice test, but emphasizes that if he manages to get through this dungeon she created, she will let him leave class early and will also grant the privilege of leaving early in the future. Lin dodges the first attack and, while preparing to face the skeletons, the system informs that his mission in the undead dungeon is to survive for 40 minutes or eliminate 20 skeleton soldiers. Lin becomes worried and thinks he never imagined that the substitute teacher would open this kind of dungeon just to test his level. However, he decides to face the challenge and grabs his iron dagger, and as he observes the skeletons in front of him, he knows there are 2 ways to get through. And while dodging an attack, he knows the first is to stall for time, and the second is to eliminate the creatures. So he charges forward, applying a slash to the skeleton's neck. But upon realizing he did not completely eliminate the creature, he strikes again, and this time manages to eliminate the first skeleton soldier out of a total of 20. Then he concludes that by attacking weak points, he can handle one with an average of 2 strikes. And, as he focuses, he thinks that only 19 soldiers remain, totaling 38 strikes. From afar, the substitute teacher wonders if the boy really had the courage to charge at the skeletons, as she thought he would be so scared that he would apologize immediately and beg to close the dungeon. But upon observing him more closely, she notices that his footwork, the way he uses strength, the angle of the cuts, he actually has good form, along with clean movements and precise judgment. Thus, she thinks the MC is much better than that bunch of idiots who only swing their swords blindly, but that the only problem is that the MC's basic attributes are terrible. However, upon realizing that he is truly determined to complete the dungeon missions she created, she wonders if the reason he enrolled in both swordsmanship and meditation classes at the same time was because he wanted to increase his attributes. But as soon as she sees him starting to struggle in the fight, she knows it is a pity because the dream is beautiful, but the physical body has limits. Even so, she knows that for him to have eliminated 13 skeleton soldiers is already a miracle for his trash attributes. At that moment, Lin needs to survive 28 minutes to complete the first mission and eliminate 7 more skeleton soldiers until he is struck hard from behind, and the substitute teacher stands up and thinks that he needs to know when to stop and face reality. However, the MC plants his sword into the ground to avoid falling, then turns around with a completely determined look and finally uses his heavy slash technique to eliminate 3 skeleton soldiers at once. The substitute teacher is quite surprised to see that he used a heavy slash and wonders how he could have such a skill. Lin, focused on completing the mission, continues eliminating skeleton soldiers until only 1 remains, and shortly after, he finishes off the 20th skeleton soldier. He takes a deep breath and, looking at the teacher, comments that he did what she asked, but ends up collapsing to the ground due to exhaustion. Chung-na, very surprised, wants to know what is going on with this boy, because the fact that he got an S grade on the entrance test was definitely not just luck. Meanwhile, in the student council office, a student is informing the student council president that the files of all the freshmen who got S and A grades on the test have already been organized. He comments that she did a good job and asks her to leave the files. However, she points out that there is a class schedule he should see. The president asks if there is some kind of problem. His assistant says that there is a student who made a bizarre choice of classes. so she really wants the student council president to see it, because this freshman named Xiao Lin chose all the classes he could choose. This leaves the student council president quite surprised, wanting to know if what she is saying is really true. After that, and later in the infirmary of Dawn Academy, the student council president wants to know what happened to the MC. The substitute teacher shouts, saying that it is not as if she intentionally left the MC in that state, as there was no way to know that the student council president needed to talk to him. After all, she was still teaching. The president emphasizes that it is not the first time she has treated freshmen like this. She does not like hearing that, and asks if he has any problem with her teaching method. The student council president takes a deep breath and replies that that is not what he meant, but tries to explain again that the freshmen have just arrived, and, because of that, he thinks there is no need for her to be so aggressive. Chung Na looks at the MC and makes it clear that it is precisely because they are novices that she needs to be more strict with them, because being merciful to them is the real cruelty. The student council president falls silent, and the substitute teacher turns away so she does not have to look at his face. Then the MC makes a sound and wakes up, and upon getting up, he immediately asks if that is the infirmary. The student council president replies that it is, and informs him that it is fully equipped for whatever is necessary, but emphasizes that after leaving the holographic simulation field, the physical and mental strength consumed is not reset like when he leaves a normal dungeon, and that he heard the MC fainted from exhaustion, so he wants to know how he is feeling at that moment. Lin rotates his arm back and forth and replies that apparently he seems to be much better, but that his muscles are still a bit sore. The student council president thinks this is very good and comments that if the MC rests a little more, he will recover completely. That said, the student council president asks the substitute teacher to leave the room, as he wants to talk to the student Xiao Lin in private. She does not like it at all and shouts, wanting to know on what basis she has to leave. However, even though she does not like it, she decides to do what the student council president asked, so she turns around and leaves. Then she stops halfway, looks back, calls the MC a brat, and shouts that she is not someone who breaks promises, as his early leave privilege is approved. Then she tells the MC not to say she did not warn him, because those who train magic and martial arts at the same time do not have a happy ending. That said, she leaves the room and slams the door. Lin thinks that this senior does not seem to be the violent dinosaur that everyone imagined. Meanwhile, the student council president gives a slight cough to get the MC's attention, and then asks if the MC did not read the freshman manual, because in that manual, it clearly states that it is not recommended to take many elective subjects at the same time. Thus, he explains that swordsmanship, movement, and martial arts belong to the physical department, while meditation, spells, and perception belong to the magical department, in which these two major systems he mentioned are completely different growth paths, where training magic and martial arts at the same time really has its advantages in the freshman phase, allowing one to handle more combat scenarios. But as the course progresses, each department branches into countless paths, in which in the second and third year, training both means having to invest double or triple, or even 6 or 7 times more time and energy than others. Lin comments to the student council president that he knows this very well, which leaves him confused. The MC then explains that if they compare the classes to a tree, the higher it goes, the more branches it has, and the thinner the splits become, and that because of this, training magic and martial arts at the same time really requires more dedication, but that he still wants to try, since he believes that with the bonus from his outstanding freshman talent, he is sure he will be able to do it. The student council president observes the MC for a brief moment until he sees that a message from the director has just arrived, and upon seeing what the message is about, he is surprised. Thus, he stands up and agrees with what the MC just said and emphasizes that since the director approved his class choices, he will not say anything more. But before leaving, he informs the MC that his class schedule needs to be re-optimized and adjusted, and that, at most, by the next morning, he will receive his new schedule. Lin comments that he understands and thanks the student council president for the advice, but remains intrigued, wondering how the director's message arrived at such a precise moment, because he feels it is almost as if he were being observed all the time. So he would like to know whether it is because of his SS-level talent or if there is something more. After that, and later in the director's office, something begins to appear, asking why the director has such a gloomy expression. This is the central control system of Dawn Academy, which soon asks the director to explain because she wants to have a bit of fun. The old man turns and says that apparently she has been addicted to the anime culture of Planet Blue lately. She asks if that is not what is trending on Blue Star at the moment, as she thinks it might help the director recruit more freshmen. The old man makes it clear that she is the Academy's central AI, and that only a very small number of authorized people can have contact with her existence, and therefore, she does not need to be reminded of that. She pouts and points out that the director has remained just as humorless for more than 100 years. However, she changes the subject and asks if the quality of that year's freshman is not very good, and why he looks so serious. Because as far as she knows, there is a student with dual S-level talent, and because of that, she wants to know if he is not happy. The director explains that the total sum of attributes of an ordinary person is usually around 10 points. Then he emphasizes that the Academy's admission standard is 20 points or more, but the student Xiao Lin has only 9 points, being as ordinary as possible. The Academy's central system asks what is wrong with that. The old man makes it clear that talent can only be detected after admission, meaning the MC should never have received an admission letter in the first place. The central system laughs and comments that perhaps the admissions department made a mistake and ended up picking up a genius by accident. The director turns and points out that that is precisely the problem, then says that he just checked the MC's records and discovered that in the system, there is no admission record for a student named Xiao Lin. Next, the director explains that this time, there were 1,360 admissions, but only 1,359 admission letters are clearly registered in the central computer. He then emphasizes that nothing like this has ever happened since the Dawn Academy was founded, but as the main control program, he believes she should know what the situation is. The Academy's central AI pauses thoughtfully for a brief moment, then approaches the director and informs him that, in that semester, 1,360 admission letters were issued to the freshmen, and there are no errors in them. The old man becomes serious and asks her to show the admission letter of the student Xiao Lin. The Academy's central AI becomes slightly embarrassed, but points out that although she very much wants to cooperate, the director does not have permission to view that letter. The old man is quite surprised to hear this, but comments that it is just an admission letter, so he wants to know if not even he, the director, has permission to see it. The central AI confirms that this is indeed the case, and says that she is also surprised by it. The old man becomes thoughtful, but soon takes a deep breath, says he understands and will let it go, but emphasizes that for now, with the highest level of permission he has, he wants to create an encrypted backup of all the freshmen's admission letters from that year, except for those blocked by special permissions. The central AI responds that it is fine. Then she asks the old man to wait a moment, as she will begin the encryption. It does not take long before the Academy's central AI reports that a total of 1,359 manipulable freshman admission letters from that year have all been encrypted, and that only the director and those with higher permissions have the right to view and modify them. However, one file remains blocked with special permission, and the encryption operation cannot be executed, and the original highest level protection status has been maintained. Having said that, she asks if the old man does not want others to know who that missing admission letter belongs to. He replies that yes, and explains that he will return to the new world the next day. He then makes it clear that after he leaves, he does not want many irrelevant people interfering in that child's growth. He also reinforces that he is leaving the Academy's matters in her hands and therefore wants her to work harder. The central AI responds that it is fine and wishes the director a good trip. After that, already on the next day in the cafeteria, Zhang Ting is quite surprised, asking if the person who fainted in the very first class the day before and even caught the attention of the student council president was the MC. He replies that yes, but wonders if the news has really spread that quickly. Zhang Ting takes a deep breath and comments that the MC was very unlucky, as the senior Cheng Ya is quite intimidating. Lin laughs and emphasizes that the senior really has a very oppressive presence. However, He changes the subject and asks if the holographic simulation field can only be opened by teachers. Jung Ting replies that it cannot and asks if he has not yet checked the class representative's privileges, because those privileges include, but are not limited to, viewing the basic information of class members, managing the class group, and also approving requests from class students to use the holographic simulation field. Having said that, she emphasizes that at the same time, the class representative himself can also submit a request to use the simulation field directly without needing approval from others. Lin opens the system window and asks her to explain better. Zhang Ting shows him where it is and comments that in the special section, there should be a request option where the MC can submit a request in student mode for the holographic simulation field there, and after the Academy's AI approves it, the entrance to the simulation field will open. Lin thanks his senior and says he found what she just mentioned. However, while Zhang Ting points out that he is only in his first year and therefore thinks it is very likely that his request will be rejected, the MC notices that he received a notification and, upon checking it, says that his request has just been approved, which makes Zhang Ting spit out the juice she was drinking and then, very surprised, asks how that is possible, since when she tried, the class representative waited 3 weeks for approval, and besides, they have never had treatment like this. Therefore, she explains that the holographic simulation field is generally something used starting from the second year, and that opening the field costs at least 500 exchange points, and they will only be returned if the MC passes. And if he fails, the exchange points will be wasted. Lin reflects that he currently only has 800 exchange points and therefore knows he has no chance of failing. However, he remembers what the director said, that the top 3 in the general exam earned the right to enter the new world earlier. Then he recalls instructor Chuan saying that after the general exam, the class representative is re-elected. He also remembers Wang Dalin calling him useless trash. Then he thinks that the strongest in class 7 is Xiao Yue, and right behind her comes Wang Dalin. And if for some reason Dalin becomes the class representative, he will never allow him to use the simulation field. So he knows that no matter what, he has to increase his strength before the exam. After reflecting on this, the MC says goodbye to his senior, who then asks if he is already heading to class. Lin replies that yes, and leaves. Zhang Ting thinks that it seems the MC really works hard, and that is why it is no surprise that he became the temporary class representative. Later, in the physical aptitude classroom, Liang Ziyue, a first-year student from class 6, is quite surprised and asks how the MC was chosen as the temporary class representative with such poor attributes, and whether his class instructor has gone crazy. At that moment, someone crushes a water bottle violently. It is Wang Dalin, furious, who says that he has already investigated instructor Qin Chuan, and that these instructors are all repeaters from the previous year's first class. And therefore he thinks that a novice who could not even advance to the second year has judgment comparable only to trash like Xiaolin. Then he throws the bottle hard onto the ground and says that on top of that, the MC keeps training alone after class, and that Xiao Yue dared to look down on him, and because of that, he makes it clear that sooner or later he will teach her a lesson. Liang asks why wait 3 months for the exam, since they can simply teach the MC a lesson right now. Wang Dalin becomes intrigued and asks him to be more specific. Liang says that he knows a second-year senior who is in the discipline department, and that since violating school rules deducts points, he thinks he has a plan in mind. Meanwhile, Lin is running on the treadmill and receiving experience points in his physical aptitude until he feels exhausted and stops running. His physical aptitude is currently at level 1, lacking 82 points to advance to the next level. He looks at the clock and realizes it is already almost 7 o'clock, since there is a deadline to return to his dormitory, and as he approaches the door, he reflects that it is a 10-minute walk to the dormitory, and therefore thinks he can make it by curfew. But he knows that by training a little every day after class, at his current pace, he should be able to raise his physical aptitude to level 2 by next week. However, as soon as he tries to open the door, he is surprised by something and, when he tries to open it again, wonders if someone locked it from the outside. Lin keeps trying to open the door and wonders how someone could lock it without even checking if there was someone inside, and when he fails to open it, he becomes worried and thinks that curfew is in a few minutes. and that he might have to sleep there, until he becomes startled upon realizing that the lights suddenly went out. Then he turns around to see what is happening, but upon seeing that there is nothing, he shakes his arms, laughs, and thinks that he ended up scaring himself, but it was just the lights turning off at the right time. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Chen Yu from Class 1 of the second year, a member of the discipline department and representative of the second year, asks if his friend is saying that among the freshmen, there is a temporary class representative who violated the rules and is walking around at night. Hansen from Class 8 of the second year and a member of the discipline department explains that it was the freshman from Class 6, Liang Ziwei, who made the report and that apparently it is true. And since a temporary class representative of the freshmen is openly violating curfew, he suggests that this person needs to be severely punished to set an example. Chen Yu comments that the director is out of the academy and the student council president is too busy with other matters to deal with such trivialities. So he thinks the discipline department must maintain control and that they cannot make any mistakes. Having said that, he emphasizes that he is also the current representative of the first year and therefore believes that disciplinary problems among freshmen cannot be tolerated. Hansen claps and agrees with Chen Yu. After that, they soon arrive at the training field, and Hansen tells Chen Yu that he will go in and take a look, but has in mind that the kid Liang is responsible for gathering evidence of rule violations among the freshmen while he handles law enforcement. And while unlocking the training room door, he thinks that the MC has just become a temporary class representative and must certainly have many exchange points, and therefore believes it will be great to extort some money from him this time. But as soon as he opens the door, he enters the room surprised, asking where the MC is. Chen Yu asks if something happened. Hansen feels a bit embarrassed and replies that he heard a noise inside and thought someone was hiding there. Meanwhile, the MC is completely silent and hidden behind the door that the representative opened, who in turn keeps looking around and commenting that it is very strange because he was sure someone was there. Chen Yu emphasizes that the door was locked from the outside, and therefore thinks it would be impossible for anyone to be inside, and that Hansen must have heard wrong. He becomes even more embarrassed and says he must have had an auditory hallucination, but that it is better to continue the patrol. And while Hansen feels frustrated at seeing that the MC was not there, Lin takes the opportunity and leaves. After running for a few minutes, Lin stops for a moment, takes a deep breath, and thinks that he narrowly escaped and was almost caught, since he knows that first-year freshmen cannot go out at night, and if they are caught, he will certainly lose points. But on the other hand, he thinks this was too much of a coincidence, because he had just been locked in the training field and the discipline department people immediately came to inspect, so he wonders if someone might be setting something up against him, or if it is just his paranoia, until he is surprised by something as he is seeing two moons. Then he remembers that the director had said that the academy there was designed exactly following the norm world, but he wonders if the new world really has two moons. Lin starts walking again and thinks that apparently he will not be able to return to the training field, and that the priority right now is to find a place to spend the night. At that moment, a creature makes a loud sound as it takes a deep breath, which frightens the MC greatly upon hearing it, especially since he is facing the enormous dragon that the director used to go to the opening ceremony, so the MC becomes worried. The dragon opens its wings and, as it rises, stares directly at the MC, who in turn does not think much and runs away so as not to be caught by the creature. Then, he looks back and wonders if the dragon is not chasing him, because he simply does not want to become the dragon's midnight snack. Until, when he looks ahead, he sees a huge house, so he concludes that whatever it is, he will hide there first. And as he passes through a gate, he looks back again and thinks the dragon will follow him there, but ends up being surprised again when he hears another strange noise. And when he looks around and sees a huge garden with a sinister rooster walking in the middle of it, he wonders where he is. Then he becomes incredulous upon noticing a giant cabbage among the crops, and he can also smell a very sweet scent coming from the fruits that are glowing brightly. Then, as he looks directly at the rooster, he finds it quite strange, but imagines that the creature looks very appetizing and even makes him crave roasted chicken. At that moment, the rooster does not like being stared at, and then launches a fire attack at the MC, who needs to dodge to avoid being incinerated. The rooster continues advancing toward the MC, but someone grabs it firmly by the neck. Lin immediately wants to know who the person who just appeared is, who in turn does not answer the MC's question, but asks which class he is from, since instead of returning to the dormitory to sleep at night, he comes there to steal his chickens. Both remain silent for a brief moment, but the MC insists on wanting to know who the guy is, who eventually decides to say that his name is Song Jun-lang and that he is the head of the logistics department, but asks if the MC invades his territory and does not even know who he is. Thus, while squeezing the rooster's neck and making a bizarre expression, he comments that the MC is one of those bold freshmen and that it has only been 2 days since classes started and they are already violating curfew and school rules. But since the boy scared his chicken, he wants to know how he intends to compensate him. Lin says he is very sorry and explains that he entered there by mistake to escape from the dragon outside and that he had no intention of violating the rules, and that he can explain what really happened. Having said that, he explains that he was training in the training room, and when he tried to leave because of curfew, he realized that the door to the training room was locked. Then, he had to hide so as not to be caught by the discipline department members. And finally, when he escaped, he encountered the enormous dragon and, to avoid being eaten alive, ran there. Junlang says he understands and tells the MC to relax, because the giant lizard outside will not attack him there, since in the end, he thinks that since the MC seems so weak that the dragon would not even bother to take interest in him. Upon hearing this, Lin feels it was a direct blow to his ego, but soon becomes stunned when he realizes that the head of the logistics department called the dragon a giant lizard. Junlang comments that as for the MC having been locked in the training field, he thinks it is nothing more than a common trick of those brats from the discipline department. Lin, surprised to hear this, asks if Junlang is saying that someone really set a trap. He makes it clear that exchange points are the main currency there, since they can be used to buy equipment, activate the simulation field, or exchange for rare resources from the new world, as everything requires many exchange points. And he also knows that the kids from the discipline department love these legal trap games, where first they set things up for someone to commit an infraction and then show up to handle it privately. Having said that, he emphasizes that credits are the key to determining whether a person will level up or enter the new world. Then he says that since the MC will not want to lose points, he just needs to hand over a few hundred exchange points as a fine. Lin does not like hearing this and thinks it is a very despicable method, and also knows that the only person he had problems with was Wang Dalin, but he did not expect him to ally with the discipline department. Jun Long calls the MC, and as he approaches him, comments that going out after curfew and invading the logistics department, these two violations together will cost him many points, so he asks if he does not think so. Lin becomes quite worried about the pressure he is feeling coming from the head of the logistics department, until he hears someone knocking on the entrance gate. Yun Lang comments that it seems to be the discipline department and that they appear determined to catch the MC, since they have never come to inspect the logistics department before. So he asks what the MC thinks about opening the gate for them to enter, and the boy accepting his punishment right away. Lin calls out to the senior and says that he explained a lot of things and even revealed the tricks of the discipline department, so he thinks it certainly was not just because he liked him. He comments that the MC seems to be intelligent and that he did not waste his time talking to him. Thus, he asks if the MC by any chance knows how to cook, which leaves him quite confused by the strange question. But remembering what his life was like before, he replies that maybe he knows a little, but he keeps in mind that although he has only watched some cooking tutorials and videos from time to time, he has never actually cooked. Jun Lang emphasizes that knowing the basics is enough, since he is not a demanding person. Having said that, he says he will resolve the issue with the discipline department outside and will ensure that the MC does not lose any points, but in return, he will have to do him a small favor. Then he squeezes the chicken's neck even harder and says that he has been craving clay-roasted chicken for a long time and that the MC can use what he is holding to prepare it. Lin is quite surprised, asking if Mr. Jun Lang is serious. He makes it clear that since the MC is stuck there, he has two options. Either he goes out and accepts the punishment, or he stays and prepares the chicken while he resolves everything for him. Lin laughs and chooses to make the chicken. Junlang makes a sinister expression and comments that it should be clear that the MC is doing this of his own will and that he did not force him to do anything. Lin replies that it is fine and emphasizes that it is all of his own will, but inwardly he thinks that somehow he is feeling a bad premonition. Then Junlang points to the house and tells the boy to hide inside and not make any noise, as he will deal with the discipline department members. Lin thanks the senior and runs off. After that, outside, Chen Yu and Hansen are waiting. Junlang, upon seeing Chen Yu, comments that if it is not the extremely busy second-year leader and favorite of the discipline department, but asks what he is doing in the logistics department in the middle of the night, or if perhaps he got hungry and came out looking for a snack. Chen Yu says that during patrol, they noticed agitation from the director's mascot and went to check if any offender caused some incidenta. But upon seeing the chicken in Junlang's hand, he comments that it seems the head of the logistics department is wasting time with such nonsense late at night, to which Junlang asks if they discovered the reason for the agitation of the director's dragon, since he does not want people to say that they could not even resolve their own matters, and still found time to meddle in what he does. Hansen emphasizes that the logistics department is part of the academy, and that the discipline department has the authority to inspect any irregularity in any sector, since they suspect that a freshman is outside the dormitory at that very moment, and that Junlang does not have the right to prevent their inspection. Junlang completely changes his expression and makes it clear that he is speaking to Chen Yu, then asks since when a low-level lackey of the discipline department has the right to interfere. Then, he points out that the discipline department members know very well the dirty things they do behind the scenes, and that if they insist on bothering him again, he will send a misconduct report directly to the director for invasion of the logistics department. Hansen does not like this, but Chen Yu tells him to stop. Thus, he calls out to Song Junlang and comments that he only knows how to use the director's name to intimidate others, and that everyone in the Dawn Academy knows that his overall strength ranking does not even reach rank C, and that if it were not for the director's direct recommendation, with his strength, he would not even be qualified to be in the second year, much less to be a department head. While the MC is hiding, he still hears Chen Yu saying that Junlang is a talentless, privileged person who is only there because of connections, and that therefore he should not try to lecture them using school rules. Lin thinks that this Chen Yu seems to have a lot of hostility towards Senior Junlang. However, he becomes intrigued, wanting to know who, in the end, Senior Song really is, since apparently his strength does not even reach rank C, and yet he was appointed head of the logistics department by the director himself. The atmosphere remains tense between Chen Yu and Junlang. Seeing this, the MC wonders if, by any chance, they are going to end up throwing punches. But Junlang gives a faint smile, calls out to Chen Yu, and comments that since he knows he is someone with backing and still dares to provoke him, he can see that his intelligence is not all that great. Hansen does not like this, and comments that even if Chief Junlang has a good relationship with the director, he cannot openly ignore the school rules, since the inspection by the discipline department is a formal power granted by the academy, and he does not have the right to stop them. Just then, Chen Yu receives a voice call from the president. He answers, and the president comments that the AI informed him that Chen Yu went to inspect the logistics department. That said, he asks him to return immediately and not bother Chief Junlang. Chen Yu does not like this, and quickly wants to know why, since they are only checking an irregularity. While thinking that he finally had a chance to annoy Junlang, Hansen comments that it is true and that he thinks the president cannot be so biased, because if he stops to think about it, he thinks the freshman is hidden in the logistics department, and since he has not found him yet, he cannot simply go back. However, the president takes on a sinister look and a terrifying aura, and asks the two of them to listen carefully. Then he says that the director and even the entire academy owe Chief Junlang a huge favor. That said, he emphasizes that no matter what Junlang does, as long as he does not harm the academy's fundamental interests, no one has the right to interfere. Chen Yu gets nervous, turns around, and calls Hansen to leave. But before leaving, he looks at Junlang and asks him to take care of himself. Junlang laughs and asks him the same thing. After that, the chief of the logistics department goes to where the MC is, and he apologizes to Junlong because he ended up involving him in a lot of things. But he keeps thinking that what those two said was pretty serious, and wonders if the academy and the director really owe a favor to a student. Junlang grabs the MC and comments that he is thinking too much, because it has nothing to do with him, since he has always had a certain hostility with Chen Yu for a long time, and that him wanting to come in and search the place was only to try to get under his skin. That said, he calls the MC to go prepare the chicken. Lin warns that he will not guarantee that the chicken's flavor will be completely authentic. Junlang agrees and asks the boy to do it his own way, as long as it is cooked. Thus, the MC begins to brush the seasoning all over the chicken and then makes a stuffing. After that, he completely covers the chicken with the fire coals. Then, both of them wait for the chicken to be ready. Lin, while drinking his tea, thinks that ever since he was kidnapped to the academy, this is the first time he has felt relaxed. 2 hours later, the chicken is ready and giving off a delicious aroma. The MC breathes in relief and thinks that this is the first time he has cooked, and that at least the chicken's appearance and smell seem to be a success. Lin also thinks that maybe he even has talent to become a chef. Junlong takes a large piece of the chicken and comments that the MC did a great job because it smells amazing. However, the piece he just took is handed to the boy and he asks him to eat it. Lin takes the chicken thigh, but wants to know if the chief of the logistics department is not going to eat. He makes it clear that, as a senior, he could not take food from a freshman, and that, because of that, he eats first, since the first bite must always be taken by the cook. The MC laughs and emphasizes that, to tell the truth, he still had not eaten dinner. Thus, he takes a light bite of the chicken and is completely amazed, commenting that the meat is very tender, has no strong smell, and has a sweet touch. Besides the fact that he has never eaten such delicious chicken, Junlang wants to know how the MC is feeling in his body. While continuing to eat, he is confused by the question, because he does not know how his body is supposed to feel. Until, out of nowhere, Lin feels something very strange, and, as he places both hands on his belly, he thinks it even feels like there is a fire inside his stomach, and that he feels as if his organs are melting. Upon seeing the MC fall to the ground, Junlang wants to know if it hurts a lot, and if, by any chance, he feels anything else besides the pain, since, if that is all, he should hold on tight, because it will pass soon. Lin reflects that this is why the chief of the logistics department did not eat, because he thinks he did something on purpose, and that there is something very wrong with the chicken. Junlang keeps observing the MC until he ends up fainting. However, Lin, inside his consciousness, is still feeling pain, but at that moment, the burning sensation has spread throughout his entire body through his blood, and the feeling he is experiencing is as if there were fire burning inside him. However, along with the pain, he also feels as if a strange and powerful force is emerging from within his body, something he has never felt before. Meanwhile, Junlang writes in his notebook about the hybrid iron-crested chicken species number 3, weighing 9 kilos. The safety evaluation is non-toxic. The genetic sequence contains a potential activation factor, and consumption can drastically strengthen the body's basic attributes. As for the adverse reactions, they are strong sensations of rejection during the potential activation period. The post-consumption benefits need to be confirmed after awakening. Junlang thinks that, even after several generations of crossbreeding, consumption still causes a strong rejection reaction, and because of that, he knows he needs to continue improving it. However, as for the beneficial effects, he will have to wait for the MC to wake up to confirm them. After that, already on the next day, the MC wakes up, but feels his head spinning a lot. Then Junlang appears, commenting that the boy has finally woken up. Lin quickly gets up from the bed and furious shouts that he trusted him, and that, in the end, he only used him as a guinea pig. Junlang asks the MC to calm down and says that he tested it on himself first, besides the fact that there was no risk to his life at all. Lin shouts even louder that this is a lie, because he almost died from the pain, and also because he fought so hard to survive until now. And if, in the worst-case scenario, he had died because of a dinner, he swears he would come back to haunt him. Junlang laughs and agrees with the boy, but asks him to see how he is still in one piece. That said, he also asks him not to get angry yet. Then, He wants to know why the boy does not open his attribute panel and take a look. Lin turns his face away, crosses his arms, and wants to know what the department chief is plotting now. He only asks the MC to check it because he thinks he will have a big surprise. Lin takes a deep breath and makes it clear that he will trust him one last time. Thus, he opens the status window and then observes it closely. Then, he becomes very surprised by what he is seeing, since his strength increased by 1 point and his constitution went up by 2 points, besides the fact that his physical damage evaluation rose from rank F- to F. Then, he wants to know how this is possible. However, he becomes even more surprised since his basic physical conditioning went up by 2 levels. Junlang is amazed to learn this and immediately notes down that the post-consumption benefits were the increase in attributes and basic skills as well. Then, he starts shouting that what he was testing really worked. The MC calls out to Chief Junlang and comments that since he was the guinea pig for this experiment, he thinks he deserves at least an explanation. Then, he wants to know if the result he got was because of that chicken. He answers that yes, but first they need to sit down and talk. That said, he explains that the name of the chicken the MC ate is iron-crested chicken, which is a new species he created by crossing an ordinary domestic chicken with an iron-crested chicken from the world of Norma. But he wants to know if, by any chance, the MC has ever read isekai, or world travel novels. He nods and answers yes. Junlang wants to know how long the MC thinks a primitive man would live if he were suddenly transported to modern society. Lin thinks for a brief moment until he comments that he has heard of that theory, in which the primitive man would die quickly because of modern bacteria, since his immune system would not be adapted to the new environment. Junlang comments that this is exactly it, and emphasizes that, following the same logic, Norma and the Blue Star are 2 completely different worlds, and the body of an ordinary person would not be able to withstand the environment of the new world. That said, he makes it clear that this is why the Academy only allows entry starting from the 2nd year, since only when the attributes reach the standard is it possible to adapt to the environment there. Lin comments that he understands, and that now he understands the reason why the president had that reaction when the Academy director mentioned that the freshmen could enter earlier. Junlang says that this was when he had an idea. Why not use the natural resistance of the native creatures of the new world to help the freshmen adapt faster? But he says that at first, he ate the creature from the new world directly, but the rejection was extreme, and besides not increasing his attributes, he was bedridden for a very long time, and it was only by luck that he did not die while testing it. The MC makes it clear that the chief of the logistics department is really crazy for testing that on himself. Junlang also says that ever since he failed in the first experiment, he has been researching how to reduce that rejection until he finally arrived at this hybrid improvement method. But this type of food therapy creates resistance, since it only works the first time a person eats it. Lin comments that this makes sense, since if it were possible to increase attributes infinitely just by eating, the Academy would not even need physical education classes. At that moment, Junlang quickly approaches the MC and says that the iron-crested chicken no longer works on him, but that, even so, there are still a bunch of other edible hybrid species there. Lin comments that after the chief of the logistics department talked so much, he thinks he only wanted to find a voluntary and free guinea pig. He laughs and answers yes. The MC takes a deep breath but ends up agreeing to it. However, he makes it clear that he will accept on the condition that Junlang does not put his life at risk. He asks the boy to relax and trust him. Lin gets up from the chair and comments that he will be waiting because he has to go back to class. But he wants to know how long he was unconscious. Junlang says it was for 2 days. The MC is completely shocked to learn this and thinks that his credits are most likely all negative by now. But Junlang asks the boy to relax and informs him that he has powerful contacts because the MC's absences have already all been excused, and that, from that moment on, there is no problem at all with him spending the nights there with him instead of returning to the dormitory. Lin breathes in relief after hearing this. Then he says goodbye to the chief of the logistics department and says that he will come back at night to see him. 1 hour later, in the academy cafeteria, Xiao Yue is having lunch. Then, she hears Wang Dalin furious, saying that things are very strange to another guy. Hansen wants to know if the big guy is still brooding over that matter involving the MC, because if so, he thinks it is better for him not to talk about it anymore, since Wang Dalin does not know how much he was cursed at because of it. The big guy punches the table and shouts, saying that he simply cannot accept it because they locked the MC in the training field, just waiting for someone to catch him in the act. But the brat simply disappeared for 2 days. Besides, he also went around investigating and discovered that, in addition to not being expelled or losing points, the MC even got involved with the chief of the logistics department. Upon hearing this, Zhao Yue realizes that it really has been 2 days since she last saw the MC. Then, a few seconds later, she is very surprised since she is seeing Lin right in front of her, acting as if nothing had happened. But even so, she wants to know where he has been for the last 2 days. He feels a little embarrassed by the question, but says it is a long story and that he will explain it to her better later. Until Wang Dalin sees the MC and wonders how this brat still has the nerve to show up in the cafeteria. So, he walks over to him, calls him the omnipotent substitute monitor, and says that since he disappeared for 2 days, he thought he had been expelled for violating the rules. Then, he says he heard that the MC has been working pretty hard, but advises him that he had better not waste his time, since trash will always be trash, no matter how much he trains. Because no matter who he tries to rely on, the gap in strength is something he will never be able to reach. Lin does not care at all, and even says that Wang Dalin really is an incredible guy. Then, he asks him to always keep being like that. This irritates him, making him wonder what the hell kind of attitude that is from the MC. And while Hansen tries to pull Wang Dalin away from there, he keeps telling the MC not to think he is such a big deal just because he allied himself with the head of the logistics department, because he had better understand that in the academy they are in, strength is the only truth. After saying that, Wang Dalin leaves, saying that the MC had better enjoy it while he can, because in the final exam, he will show him what a real difference is. After the big guy leaves, Lin takes a deep breath and says that this guy is really sick in the head. Xiao Yue wants to know if the MC still has not seen the new announcement. Lin answers that he has not and asks her to tell him. Xiao Yue says that the date of the first final exam has been moved up. Lin is very surprised to hear this, but wants to know if she is really sure. Xiao Yue answers yes and explains that it was supposed to be 3 months from now, but they changed it to a month and a half from now. The MC lowers his head and thinks that now, with the exam moved up, he knows this means he will have less time to evolve. Then, he remembers that the class later is basic meditation, and he has already missed 2 days of class. So, he needs to hurry and catch up on all the missed content. Otherwise, besides not making it into the top 3, it will be a miracle if he manages to pass. After that, a few hours later, Li Meiling, a third-year student and substitute teacher of basic meditation, is angry and wants to know if the MC is the so-called Xiao Lin, since she knows he was the one who bothered Chengnya, caused trouble in her swordsmanship class, and even forced her to accept that insolent and clueless request of his. Lin asks the senior to calm down and says she misunderstood, because he never bothered senior Chengnya, since she was the one who insisted on testing his strength. And afterward, he passed the test through his own merit. While the other students try to concentrate on meditation, Meiling shouts that the MC is lying. Then, she tells him not to think she knows nothing, because he insisted on dual cultivation of magic and combat. Then, Chengnya tried to advise him out of kindness, but he did not listen, and even used the student council president's name to pressure her. Meiling says all of this with 100% of the scene processed by her own imagination. She keeps shouting that if it were not for the special request Chengnya made to her, she would not let him set foot in her classroom. Then, she suggests that he should be grateful to senior Chengnya. Lin takes a deep breath and, to avoid contradicting the substitute teacher, simply agrees with her. Then, Meiling turns around, calls everyone arrogant freshmen, and says they have no idea about senior Chengya's good intentions. Then, she says there was once a student who was exactly like the MC, stubbornly insisting on the path of dual cultivation. Chengnya advised him over and over again, but he did not listen to her. With no other choice, she ended up letting him do what he wanted. Because of that, the final result was that, in his first battle in the New World, Since his magic was mediocre and his swordsmanship was also weak, he was easily eliminated by native races. Then, when his body was sent back, it was nothing more than a mass of minced flesh. After saying that, she wants to know if everyone has any idea how much guilt Senior Chungnya felt, because that became the nightmare of her life. So she thinks that no one there understands absolutely anything. After Mailing tells them about this, she starts trembling all over. Lin notices the state the substitute basic meditation teacher is in and reflects that in the end, Chungnya was not against his dual cultivation because she looked down on him, but because something very bad had already happened before. So, he tells Senior Mailing that he understands her very well. Then, he asks her to stay calm and swears that he will not allow a tragedy like the one she just told them about to happen to him. Then, he explains that everything he is doing is precisely to ensure his survival in the new world. Mailing is very surprised by the MC's determination. However, she emphasizes that talking is very easy and immediately warns him that she will not make up the classes he missed over the last 2 days. Lin says he understands and goes over to the other students. Xiao Yue, at the back of the classroom, signals to the MC and tells him there is a seat beside her. As soon as he sits down, she hands him the notes she made during the first 2 days of class. Lin thanks her and says he was really worried about how to catch up on the content. Then, he emphasizes that she saved his skin. After opening the notes, the MC reads that the world he is in is divided into 4 fundamental elements: fire, water, earth, and wind. Powerful mages can manipulate these elements at will, combining and arranging them as if they were writing code, thus constructing powerful spells. As for the essence of meditation, it is to sense these elements scattered in the air, establish a connection with them, and try to contract them. However, after trying to do this, and then trying again, he gets scared, wondering why he cannot sense absolutely anything. After that, at night, the MC goes to Junlang and tells him what happened in the basic meditation class. While tossing up a fruit he grows in his garden, the department head wants to know if the MC really got stuck in meditation class. He answers yes, but wants to know if Junlang has anything he can eat to increase his perception. Junlang wants to know if the MC thinks he manages some kind of miracle medicine pharmacy. Lin takes a deep breath and answers that he at least had to try. However, Junlang emphasizes that what is happening to the MC is completely normal, because the hardest part of meditation has never been leveling up, but transforming the experience from 0 to 1. However, for many people, going from 1 to 50 takes only 1 or 2 weeks, but going from 0 to 1 can take a month or 2. Upon hearing this, Lin shouts that he cannot afford to wait that long, since there is just over a month left until the first exam, and he needs to increase his strength in every aspect as much as possible before then. Junlang comments that, in that case, he thinks the MC should maybe ask for advice from a classmate who chose the path of magic, since elemental perception is directly linked to the intelligence value, and the higher the intelligence, the stronger the sensitivity to the elements, making it easier to overcome this initial barrier. Lin gets an idea about the intelligence attribute. Then, he opens his system and thinks it is true, because, as the substitute monitor, he has the authority to check his classmates' basic attributes. And, if they are talking about who has the highest intelligence in the class, he thinks it is undoubtedly Xiao Yue. And, as soon as he checks, he is very surprised, since he sees that Xiao Yue only has 2 years left in her life expectancy. After that, the next day, the MC walks to the meditation classroom. He opens the door and sees Xiao Yue already in her seat. She immediately says good morning to him. However, Lin sits down without saying anything, which leaves her confused. Then the MC says that she knows that, as the substitute monitor, he has permission to see the data of the other students in the class, and that includes being able to see other people's life expectancies. Then, he says that he saw her natural life expectancy, and only 2 years remain. But as he says this, he thinks he ended up saying it in a way that makes it seem like he is pushing too hard into her privacy. Xiao Yue is surprised, but then tries to hide it and says that he is right, but she wants to know why he suddenly brought up that subject. Lin gets a little agitated and asks if she has some serious illness or if it is some kind of incurable condition. Because both of them have already gone through life or death situations together, and he can try to help her find a solution. Zhao Yue takes a deep breath and answers that it is not a serious or incurable illness, but something she was born with. The MC is intrigued after learning the reason, so he says that now he understands why she showed so much interest when instructor Qin Chuan mentioned that it was possible to increase one's lifespan there at the academy. She answers yes and says that the MC has most likely already heard from the teachers that anyone who failed the admission test would have their memory erased and be sent back to the Blue Star world. However, for others, going back might not be a big deal. But for her, going back would mean having only 2 years left to live, without being able to change anything. After saying that, she smiles and makes it clear that thanks to his help, she managed to stay there and seize this one opportunity. He gets embarrassed, turns his face away, and says she does not need to thank him, because, as she once said herself, they did that to maximize the rewards. So, it was just a mutual benefit. However, he makes it clear that if she needs help, she should ask at any time, since, as both of them survive the admission test together, he already considers her a friend. A few minutes later, Meiling enters the classroom, saying she did not want to teach the freshman brats again, because if she had known, she would not have been so greedy for the few credits to become a damn substitute teacher. Until, when she looks toward the back of the classroom, she notices that both the MC and Xiao Yui are already there. Then she says that since they arrived early, she will even give them a tiny little compliment for it. Lin laughs and says he would very much like to receive a compliment from the senior. However, Meiling shouts, telling him not to forget that in the last meditation class, he could not even achieve the basics of elemental perception by the end of the class. So, if he remains stuck in the same place during the class they are about to have, he can get lost and focus on his swordsmanship instead. A little embarrassed, the MC answers that he understands, but he thinks that this senior looks small and cute, but has a terrifyingly short temper. So, everyone soon begins to concentrate on meditation. As for the MC, he realizes that it is just as he expected. It is the same as last time, and he still cannot sense even a trace of the elements. And, since the conventional method does not work, he knows he only has one last trick left. Then, he activates his absolute genius skill and starts observing all the students in front of him. Some do not have any detection skill, while others have the level 1 basic meditation skill, which can be copied. Lin reflects that the vast majority of people are still stuck at level 0, and only a few have barely managed to reach level 1. However, when he looks to the side, he notices that Xiao Yue's basic meditation is at level 6. So, he knows this was already expected from a genius with 36 points in the intelligence attribute, since her talent in the field of magic is simply overwhelming. Therefore, the MC decides to copy his friend's skill. After doing so, he now has level 6 basic meditation, but only for 3 minutes. Then, he realizes how the world is seen through the eyes of a mage. So, not wanting to waste any more time, Lin reflects that he needs to take advantage of the copied meditation effect while it lasts to memorize the state of elemental perception and unlock this skill. A few minutes later, Meiling is reading a book, until she yawns and thinks that this class is very boring, and that she wanted to run away to play with Chengya. And, as she observes the freshmen in front of her, she thinks that they believe magic is far too simple, and that overcoming elemental perception is that easy. However, out of all the students, it seems that only the freshman Xiao Yue has a little talent. But Meiling ends up being surprised by something, since she is seeing the power of the elements converging toward the MC of their own will. Then, she stands up, wanting to know how this is possible, especially him, who only has 2 points of intelligence. A few minutes later, Lin opens his eyes after realizing something. He has unlocked the basic meditation skill. The MC gets excited and thinks that it is just as Junlong had said, that simply being able to sense the presence of the elements once is enough to unlock the basic meditation skill. At that moment, Teacher Meiling walks over to him and then comments that the day before, he could not even come close to sensing the elements. But now, he is already causing all this commotion. Then, she wants to know what kind of dirty trick he used. Then she takes his hand and pulls him along, asking him to follow her. After they go to a more private place, Mei asks the Academy's AI to show Xiaolin's student skill information, and as soon as she checks it, she is surprised to see that he really did unlock basic meditation. However, she shouts, saying that he knows what she wants to ask and that he should not try to dodge the question. The MC feels a little embarrassed and comments that maybe his learning ability is slightly above average. But the substitute teacher does not buy it and shouts, asking if he thinks she looks like a clown. Lin asks the senior to calm down and explains that he simply devoured the notes student Xiao Yue gave him and then ate a bunch of strange things that the head of the logistics department offered him. After saying that, he emphasizes that maybe one of those fruits Junlang gave him had the temporary effect of increasing his elemental perception, and he ended up succeeding by luck. Meiling thinks about the head of the logistics department and, knowing what he is like, comments that if it was one of those strange things he produces, then it might actually make sense. However, she stresses that it is very dangerous for the MC to be that guy's guinea pig, since she knows he is capable of betting his own life on his research. So she asks the MC not to be stupid enough to get himself killed. Lin replies that he knows that, but thanks her for her concern. Then he wants to know when they will start learning real spells. She flicks the tip of the MC's nose and asks if he really wants to learn spells with only 2 points in the intelligence attribute, because basic meditation is only the entry point, since the elemental control and spell formation that come afterward require a lot of intelligence. After saying that, she makes it clear that, in his case, wanting to master magic while still in the first year is pure fantasy. Lin is completely devastated after hearing this, but comments that he understands and will be more patient. With that, the MC thinks that, indeed, his low intelligence is a fatal flaw. Besides, copying the absolute genius's skills only works for temporary use, and each use has a cooldown of 7 full days. So he knows he cannot use it in daily training, but he wonders if his only path is to focus entirely on the physical system, since he needs a trump card to have a better chance in the exam. Meiling sees the freshman looking very discouraged and soon remembers Changya's words, in which she said that the MC's attributes were extremely low and that she could bet he was insisting on dual cultivation to try to increase them as much as possible, since, in the end, the freshman test was far too cruel, so she can understand why he wants to survive. With that, Meiling comments to the MC that it is because she is very kind that she will give him a path, but if it were someone else, she would not even bother doing this. Then, she wants to know if, during the admission test, the MC saw other people using staffs to attack. He is surprised by the question and, after thinking for a moment, realizes that it is true, because back then, even without knowing anything about magic, he managed to fire energy spheres using the staff. Meiling equips a staff and explains that it is not mandatory for casting spells, but that it helps lower the barrier of elemental control and amplifies the user's perception. After saying that, she explains that those beginner staffs the freshmen used in the test were already enchanted with the basic energy sphere skill, and as long as the user's intelligence is not 0, it is possible to activate the enchanted skill inside the staff. Then Meiling comments that the Academy has an equipment trading zone, so, in that place, the MC can find several beginner staffs with enchanted skills. Therefore, she thinks maybe he can go there and try his luck. Lin gets excited after hearing this and thanks the senior for helping him. However, she hits him on the head with the staff and says that area is full of scammers. So there will be defective products that explode after 2 uses. And because of that, she asks him to keep his eyes wide open so he does not get deceived. After saying that, she also asks the MC not to even touch the decorated high-level staffs, because with his intelligence, if he can keep a single basic skill stable, it will already be a tremendous miracle. Lin comments that he understands and thanks her for the warning. With that, the senior starts heading back to the classroom, but she turns around, saying that she will give him one last piece of advice, which is, he should not try to show off just to become stronger, because staying alive is what matters most. Lin thinks that this senior seems tough and speaks in a blunt way, but that, apparently, deep down, she is very reliable and soft-hearted. After that, the MC goes to the place Meiling mentioned and, while observing the variety of things being sold there, reflects that, in total, he has 800 exchange points. And, when he arrives at the staff area, he reflects that to activate the simulation field, he needs at least 500 points, which will be returned if he passes, but deducted if he fails. So he knows he needs to reserve those points for the simulation, and then he will only have 300 points left to buy equipment. And after a week of researching and bargaining, he spent his 300 points to customize 2 ideal beginner weapons. The first weapon is a reinforced beginner staff, which has an included ice projectile skill. The second weapon is a beginner dagger, also a reinforced version, with the included windblade skill. With that, the MC goes to the training field, gets ready, and concludes that the time has come, since his equipment, skills, and mindset are all prepared. With this in mind, Lin asks to start a rank E training simulation field, but he is informed that the 500 exchange points will be held as a deposit and that they will be fully returned in case of success and deducted in case of failure. So, he needs to decide whether or not he will accept the activation of the simulation field. Without thinking twice, the MC chooses to accept. With that, as the location begins to change, Lin is informed that he, from Class 7 of the first year, has requested the activation of the training simulation field. Then he is informed that the simulation field is about to be activated. Because of this, student Xiao Lin needs to be prepared. A few seconds later, the incandescent grotto dungeon is activated. Objective number 1 is to reach the mission point deep inside the grotto. Objective number 2 is to survive the monster siege for 2 hours. Completing either objective will result in the completion of the dungeon. As soon as the MC approaches the entrance, a rodent appears, and soon several other monsters emerge with their red eyes. Lin equips his dagger and reflects that, in the simulation field, he can choose the scenario and the difficulty of the monsters. Because of this, he chose rank E difficulty. At that moment, the creatures rush out of the cave entrance and charge straight at the MC. He, in turn, prepares himself and thinks that he is excited to test the power of his new weapons. With that, as the first monster quickly approaches, he unleashes the windblade skill, which has the effect of firing a blade of air with a piercing effect, causing armor-penetrating damage to the target. The creature is easily eliminated. In this way, Lin advances while attacking with the windblade skill and, without much difficulty, manages to defeat the monsters that get in his way. Then the MC concludes that only by leveling up non-stop and becoming stronger will he be able to survive each of the next deadly tests. And from there, he will finally survive.